Hey, showstoppers!
Hey, we're back, everybody.
Hey, we're back with a very special episode, Corey, because this is our last episode of our top 5 movie series, which is kind of exciting. We did it.
But it's the start of me kind of like crowbarring this format into every other show we ever make.
Yes,
this is fun.
Fair enough. We really
fun.
liked doing it, so we're probably just going to keep doing it this way.
Yeah. There's lots more. Like, we discovered the other day that Jessie had never seen The Shawshank Redemption, so I'm going to force her to watch with me at some point. We're going to find more excuses to show favorite movies and just get live reactions out of each other. I
love that, because this has been so much fun. It's like a film study. Except it's just more about our personalities then.
Yeah, it's a friend study. Yeah, that works.
Study. That's cute. I like.
Which was the idea all along. Yeah. Exactly. So using these as the vehicle to understand one another, and that, like this movie we're talking about today doesn't reflect terribly well on me or kindly on me.
I don't think that's true, actually.
Well, okay. Well, I'm on the side of the good guys. It should be said. But however, this was always the point of the show, and I think the experiment worked. Bud, I've learned a lot about you based on your choices. I think you've learned a lot about me, and it's been interesting learning about. I can't speak for you, but I've learned a lot about myself and why I
was just going to say that.
Yeah. So we've been able to like gaze inwards, and this is just like, this show is two people crawling up their own butts anyway, but especially so with the last few weeks.
Yes. Particularly self-evasive here.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we've just been navel gazing to a greater degree than we normally would have been. But the experiment worked, man. I think this has been really cool. It's been cool to revisit some of these movies. It's been cool to understand what part of our soul speaks to us through these movies, and it's been a gift to be able to share these with you, bud.
I agree. Right back at you. Just like unwrapping a gift every single time I get to watch a movie and then talk about it.
That's right.
But before we reveal what your movie is, I think we already did. No, I don't think we did. I think this is actually a genuine surprise to our listeners.
The people who clicked on the button with the name of the movie are still unawares. They're still in the dark.
You don't know what we're going to talk about. It's a mystery. But before we say it out loud in the actual episode, what were your like honorable mentions?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how did you get to this decision? Because this is your last one, and I had a particularly hard time figuring out what my last one was going to be.
And this one, you had a really rough time figuring that out, and we gave you your special little sandbox your little soapbox to preach about the movies that didn't make the cut. This record would have happened sooner had it been easier for me to make up my mind. I'm pretty sure this episode's coming out pretty far after the last one we did. What was the last episode we did?
It was
When Harry Met Sally.
I was about to say Sleepless in Seattle, which is not one of my favorite movies, by the way. But When Harry Met Sally.
This is why I love this show, because we're expressing the level of nuance that goes into loving something like a romantic comedy. You can love When Harry Met Sally and vehemently say, no, Sleepless in Seattle, no. So yeah, the last one was Harry Met Sally, and I was agonizing for the last few weeks over what was going to make the cut. It came down eventually to either No Country for Old Men, which I decided against because we'd already done the Coen brothers, and the one we're covering today because it's a lot of fun, and I think it would be a nice one to end on, and I think it's going to be. But some others that almost made the cut, I really wanted a Paul Thomas Anderson to be on there, but I couldn't decide. I said There Will Be Blood was one of my favorite movies for a really long time, and it still is, but what a bummer. And that would have been a slog for you, I think. I think you would have enjoyed it, but not the most fun movie in the world to talk about.
Interesting.
I thought Brazil by Terry Gilliam almost made the cut. It's Such a Beautiful Day by Don Hertzfeldt almost made the cut. There's a lot of things that like I feel guilty not including them, and I still do, and I will. But that just gives us opportunity to cover a lot of these in the future, right?
Exactly.
There's things to circle back to.
She says that she's actively Googling each one of these.
Exactly right. Exactly right. We'll catch up with those eventually. You're free to watch those on your own accord. You don't have to wait for me on there. They're very good. There are any number of ones that could be named here, but I think. Yeah, no, I'm happy with this choice. I just had to eventually get out of my own way. Like you're overthinking this, dipshit. Like this is obviously you saw this 5 times in the theater.
You did?
Yeah, I dragged people who didn't necessarily want to go watch this movie. Hi, Dad, into the theater to go watch this, and yeah, it's easily top 5. I was overthinking it. This is the most glorious, bombastic, like joyful experience.
Yes.
This is such a rich, layered, textured, stupid movie. I love it so much. But
it's excellent.
That's it. So are we ready to like finally lift the veil and finally take people off the tender hooks they've placed themselves on, wondering fruitlessly what this movie is?
Tell the people what they want to hear.
Inglourious Basterds. Hey. So Inglourious Basterds tells the tale of 2 accidentally parallel plots to kill Hitler. One plot, Shoshana Dreyfus, in living under the assumed alias Emmanuel Mimieux, orphaned by the Holocaust, seeks revenge when her theater is selected to host the grand premiere of Nazi propaganda film Pride of the Nation, or Nation's Pride, sorry. The second plot being Alder Rain and his gang of Inglourious Basterds, working alongside the Brits and Lieutenant Archie Hickox to infiltrate the movie's premiere under the guise of Italian filmmakers, and we watch their plots play out simultaneously.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good to watch these 2 plots. I just have to say, like, I think your description of the movie, like, it's so joyful. Like, you wouldn't think that. Like,
no.
Like, it's not a joyful title. It's not a joyful subject.
No.
But there's something about, like, when we talk about, like, reclaiming things, there's something about reclaiming this moment that this movie does.
Right.
That's
and it's a part of Tarantino's
cool.
wider like reclamation project. The last several films he's made have been historic what ifs, historical fiction. Like, what if this had played out differently? What if subjugated people had gotten their revenge on their subjugators? So think Django Unchained, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is what if we had been able to, what if Sharon Tate had lived next to the perfect people for the Manson family to go up against? And then what if a Jew orphaned by the Holocaust and American Jews whose families were killed were able to get their revenge against the greatest atrocity in the modern age.
Pretty amazing to think about. I just think that, first of all, there's something about this genre of movie, like the World War II, that like people enjoy watching because it's like such a, like, I grew up on World War II movies and my dad was watching, you know, so like
100%.
It's also part of your education, so I think there's an element of that here. But this movie is fictional. It's totally fictional, and
it's a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale, and that's what makes it joyful to watch. I found myself at the end, which we'll probably spend a lot of time on, just like I was smiling through the whole entire thing.
Absolutely.
I was like, oh, it was just so good. And you just find yourself thinking, hell yeah. Let's go.
This is my greatest reclamation personal project, is like degrading Jesse's speech to the point of hell yeah, let's go about everything. I'm glad to see it's finally working, but this is the most hell yeah, let's go movie I've ever seen in my life. It's
absolutely
the fucking best.
There are no other words to describe it besides those 4.
Because when he's not giving us the candy of Diane Kruger lifting a coupe glass in her beautiful brown suit in La Louisiane, which is what cameras were invented to do. He's giving us like Hitler being air-holed by semi-automatic rifles. He's giving us like the most maximalist, over-the-top fairy tale version of what a satisfying World War II picture would be. And I'm much the same way as you. To go back to what you said earlier, it was like I grew up on being adjacent to a lot of these World War II movies too, because that's my dad's primary fixation. That's his favorite subclass of history, art, genre, whatever. But it was like it would be The Great Escape, or it'd be The Big Red One, The Dirty Dozen, etc. And the movies that this movie is riffing on and paying homage to very, very directly, either in casting or the naming of the movie is a reference to one before. But this is part throwback, part real postmodern exercise in Tarantinoism. No one could have made the movie like he did.
No.
But Man, let's talk about the movie, bud. I'm so excited.
I was just gonna say
go ahead.
The Tarantino thing is interesting because you're so good at having all of this knowledge. I have to Google this knowledge, but like Tarantino felt like he couldn't make this movie for one reason or another at different points in his career, which I thought was really interesting because I think the way it came together. He couldn't have done it at any other moment to have not have this perfect cast and this perfect depiction of what we would have loved to have seen during that period in our history, Yeah. And so I think the moment came together exactly when it should have. But I thought the interesting part was like him not being able to figure out a satisfying ending. And I wonder how he got to where he got. Like, how did he get there? But you would think that he would just know that, of course, the right answer is just to kill everybody, that all the bad people. Of course, yes. But a lot
of the good people too, but yeah, just kill everybody.
True, but you can't have growth without sacrifice.
That's right. You got to burn the forest for it to grow back healthier.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that how did he get there? Like, what was the struggle? I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to hear those
gradually and over time, I think this movie is a river rock. I think it's like this perfectly polished, beautiful black thing that took like centuries to just gentle water caressing its edges and sanding it down into this perfect smooth thing that you can buy at Pier 1 Imports. No, like you're right. Like this could only have been made at this time. And if you read trivia on like the making of and the different stages of production it went through, the aborted attempts to start it up and casting and stuff, he had planned to make this in the late 90s with the likes of Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Hugo Stieglitz. Like there were a bunch of like different versions, like mirror versions of this movie that could have been made.
Wow.
But you're right. Like if he had done it earlier, we wouldn't have Michael Fassbender. We wouldn't have Christoph Waltz. We wouldn't have Brad Pitt at this exact point in his career where he he was on the come up again, but kind of needed a hit and needed to rebrand himself a little bit. He wouldn't have had Daniel Bruhl. He wouldn't have had this perfect little Nazi kid that spoke 20 languages and was able to convey it this way. It's a very special thing.
BJ Novak, like I know his part is small, but man, they look the part, it's just an Eli Roth also honorable mention there.
Absolutely. Someone I love, despite giving like categorically the worst performance in the movie, like a jarring bad performance, but he's
just
great.
But they wanted a stereotypical performance, and that's what he gave them.
Go for it, Eli. Yeah, Eli, another maximalist filmmaker in his own right.
You know what I thought was interesting is they wanted Adam Sandler for that part.
Yes, and what a missed opportunity that would have been.
Yeah, like
how fucking incredible.
Movie conflict, fucking cancel that conflict.
Cancel the conflict. Yes, I don't know what movie it was. There's no way it could have been better than this. But imagine like the magic trick, and this doesn't happen anymore. But occasionally, a movie will leave something out of the trailer. And then you experience it for the first time in the theater. It's shocking, I know. Occasionally it still happens.
Yes.
But imagine if you had no fucking idea that Adam Sandler was in this movie and you hear the bat clang in the tunnel and out he comes in all his glory. It would
have been epic.
People would have been tearing the damn seats out of the theater, man. Yeah. It would have been incredible.
I think we sort of get that ever so slightly with Mike Myers, who weaseled his way into this movie. Absolutely. But like that would have been an epic moment with Adam Sandler, and greatly disappointed that we didn't.
And this is not to discount the performances that we get in this movie.
No, not at all.
Of course, there are missed opportunities. There always are, but man, and I think rather than discuss every cast member right now, I think we'll naturally arrive on them as we make our way through and be able to spend more time and break them down a little bit. But are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay, great. So
hell yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So we start once upon a time in Nazi-occupied France. We start at the farmhouse of Perrier La Petite, a humble French dairy farmer whose house is approached forebodingly to the strains of Ennio Morricone's take on Fur Elise by one Hans Landa, Christoph Waltz. Perrier La Petite is suspected of having harbored Jewish refugees, and Hans Landa is there to investigate. Jesse? What do you think of the scene, bud?
This is like the classic, World War II moment that's so traumatizing that everybody, you've read about it, you've heard about it, you've seen a movie about it. You've seen a lot. You've never seen really like a quote unquote comedic movie about it.
Right.
But like, woof, it's a tough moment.
It's tough. It's tough.
And it's just so beautifully done though. Like I would say like when I was watching that scene again earlier today, it's smartly done. You know something bad is happening. You start to put together the pieces as to what that thing is, and it immediately becomes clear that before you even see the family under the floorboards that he has them.
Absolutely.
And the performance by what's his face, Denis Ménochet.
Denis Ménochet. Yeah.
Denis Ménochet is very,
he's French.
Very. He's sorry, I'm not. I gotta get better at my French pronunciation.
No, you don't. You absolutely don't.
I was terrible at French, by the way. It's the only class I ever failed. I actually didn't fail it.
But by your standard, you failed.
Yes, exactly.
You got a B- in that bad boy?
Very bad at French. Very, very bad, as my college teacher will attest to you. So anyways, he's giving this really great performance of, he's got to either protect his family or give up this other family. And, that's Sophie's choice. No reference movie intended, but that is what happened.
It is a Sophie's choice. That's correct.
Yes, it is a Sophie's choice.
This is also like the tone establisher, the tone setter for the rest of the movie. It establishes a bunch of things very quickly, which is to say that like this movie is not in English. We're going to ping pong between a bunch of different languages. One of the reasons I keep coming back to it, by the way, I like the moving between languages is, for whatever reason, it scratches a real itch. It's very, very fun just to think the lines in German, Italian, or French or English. But it also establishes the fact that the subject matter we're dealing with is extraordinarily heavy, but we're not here to punish you. We're going to occasionally leaven the bread, so to speak, when Hans takes out his huge pipe, or when he asks for a second glass of milk, or when he gives the analogy of the rat and the hawk, etc. Like they're having fun with this from jump.
Yes. And I think they use that language shift very intentionally throughout the movie. Yeah. To your point, to like, here's a bone, English speakers, and then also sort of to say it's a power move in different moments as well, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And there's also like a harness of it. You have to have a harness of it if you're going to be using it for good. So, we'll talk about that later, but I think you have to be skilled at it to be able to use it well. And nobody does it better than Hans Landa,
That's right.
who uses it very intentionally for power, to wield power over the moment, especially in this first scene, I think. And because he doesn't want anyone, especially those below the floorboards, to understand what's happening.
That's right.
And so I think that is a really great moment. And I also think this establishes Christoph Waltz's handprints on the Walk of Fame in LA. I don't know if he's actually on there or not, but he deserves
he will
them.
Be eventually. Yeah.
And because his performance in this movie is absolutely spectacular, and it is established in this very moment, and he plays the best villain in the sense that he's everything that you want him to be. Like, he's funny, he's sneaky, he's charming.
Right.
And he's evil.
he's a recognizable evil. Yeah, he's an evil of the 21st century. He's a bureaucrat. Like, he's just doing paperwork. He's just finding people and calling people on their bluffs. And that was the big push of this movie when it was first coming out. More even than the let's get the gang together, let's watch this fun spy movie, let's kill Hitler. It was more the like, they've created a new Hannibal Lecter.
Yes.
They found this German guy no one's ever heard of. He was in a bunch of soap operas in Germany for a while. Relatively famous there, but not here. They found this guy, and you will not believe how scary he is. You will not believe what a great villain he is. And this movie was largely sold on the back, not of Brad Pitt, not of Quentin Tarantino, but of the performance of Christoph Waltz. That's what everyone was talking about when it first came out.
And well-deserved.
Well-deserved, yeah. So he interrogates Perrier Lapidite. Go ahead.
Well, what I thought was interesting as well is that like that he was originally thinking about Leo DiCaprio for this role, but obviously he got his great role with Django Unchained, right?
And that's when they first worked together. Yeah.
But I think he then realized, I want this native German speaker, German actor, and it was the best thing he could have done.
It was absolutely the right choice. Absolutely, yeah. As much as like this is a pro Leo podcast, like you can't give me bad Leonardo DiCaprio. Absolutely. However, it would have changed the entire valence of the movie. It wouldn't have been language as a weapon. It would have been Americans doing German accents the rest of the movie, and that would have been we may not have noticed that what we were missing out on because we've never met Christoph Waltz at that point. But that's a real sliding door. He got his man. That was the maybe the biggest thing that was holding up production over the 2 decades it took to get this into theaters was they couldn't find their man. They couldn't find this one guy. But yeah, it's the birth of a almost supernatural evil in Hans Landa.
Love it.
So. We meet the Dreyfuses, the family shelter under the floorboard, and when it's revealed that they're down there, it's the old Hitchcock thing of like you build suspense by letting the audience know that there's a bomb under the table when the normal conversation is happening. So that's exactly what he's given us here. And we meet them with their descriptions. We meet Shoshana, she's this, that, and the other age. We meet Bub, we meet everybody in this family. And eventually Hans Landa, after inviting himself in, enjoying a lovely glass of milk and smoking his enormous pipe, he turns with, "You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?" And then we're off to the fucking races, buddy. The movie has turned. We know exactly what we're doing. And yeah, Perry Lepidine has to make the difficult choice.
They turn these incredibly tragic moments into this first one maybe being the exception here, but like these incredibly tragic moments into moments of victory in some way. Yeah. And Shoshana escaping is the moment of victory for this moment. And it's terrible and sad. Her family has been murdered. But there's also this great moment where he, in his very villainous ways, lets her go.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating because he could have killed her. He didn't. Why? Why didn't he kill her?
Because this is a game to him. He's playing bingo the entire movie. He's just having fun out there. Yeah, he's playing Mousetrap. Yeah. So he lets her go with an au revoir Shoshana, and we fade out of the Shoshana Dreyfus story for a little while, and we meet our title characters. Pal, you ready?
Yeah! Hell yeah, let's go!
Chapter 2, Inglourious Basterds. We start with Aldo Raine making a speech to his new recruits. What is Aldo Raine's mission statement, if you had to boil it down?
Scalp Nazis.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. He wants 100 Nazi scalps. So we're introduced to the Bastards, who are a group of Jewish American soldiers.
You're introduced to him, by the way, as the scalping is happening, which is very jarring.
That's correct, yeah.
But it's excellent, yes. I also just sorry, I'm going to remind
But by all means.
I love the Tarantino tie-in to Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France.
Yeah.
And he likes that phrase.
He really does.
He loves to play on that moment. We had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which we both watched and loved. So, I liked that little reference. But anyways, back to Aldo Raine.
Yeah. If you want to talk about someone jumping up their own ass, that's what Quentin does all the time. Quentin loves Quentin. But yeah, we meet the Inglourious Basterds. What can be said about Brad Pitt? What can be said about Brad? Let's have the conversation now.
We should give him a moment here. I like Brad Pitt in this movie a lot. I think he does an excellent job.
How could you not?
How do you not love this like Tennessee-born Southern accent?
A shit kicker.
Yeah, and he's like, "We're gonna kill them Nazis," and you're just like, "Hell yeah, let's go." How do you not get behind a character like that? It's excellent. I love it. Love the accent in particular.
Absolutely. So, he gives his modus operandi. We cut quickly to Hitler having kind of a rough day, bemoaning the many losses at the hands of these bastards who've been doing them the devil. Hitler in this movie is a whining baby, which is pretty in line with the historical record. He was a meth addicted, shit obsessed pervert who wanted to wipe out the Jews, and the movie doesn't give it any more glory or honor than that. Big whiny baby, talking about these Inglourious Basterds, these Jewish kids from America who've been hiding in the woods, scalping all of his soldiers and marking them with swastikas on their foreheads. But then we see them in action for the first time. We see them in this little culvert on the side of this. I believe are they in France at this point? They might be in Germany. They're somewhere in Europe. I remember.
Yeah.
They have landed in Europe. They're in the
Nazi occupied areas.
Europe. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So, but they're basically this guerrilla team that's moving through the woods covertly and stealthily to identify German troops. Isolate them and kill them.
Their intros are really fun because you have this great moment where they pause, name on screen in big letters, and that's a great moment as well. And I think it's like, was that copied from something or did they invent that? I don't remember what order.
Everything's a reference to something. Like,
right.
Kanye doesn't compose music; he remixes them, and Tarantino is the same way. Like everything is from something else. But yeah, the Hugo Stiglitz montage is one of the best things in the movie. We get our first Sam Jackson narration, talking about his origin story of having been a turncoat on the Nazis and arrested after killing 14 Nazi officers, finding them in their bed and choking them with his fist or stabbing them through a pillow, etc. And he is then recruited by the Bastards to go pro, as Aldo puts it. So we meet him. We meet Wiki, who's the translator who got the fuck out of Munich while the getting was good.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
They're treating this like a baseball roster. We're being introduced to the '94 Bulls, as they're just in this interrogation with this German officer who ends up dying proudly for his country after refusing to give up German secrets. But who's he killed by?
He is killed by the bear
I'm gonna make
Jew.
Jesse say it. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, there's some phrases that I'm not completely comfortable saying because I haven't earned the right. But no, he is killed by Eli Roth as the bear Jew. He's beaten to death with a baseball bat. This is. I'll get caught up every couple of seconds thinking about how good the dialogue is in this movie. Just like cousin business is a booming. It's the best. There's so much attention and detail, and like they're just fucking about in the woods. They're just having fun with language out there.
This is sort of a like boys out in the woods, hanging out with each other, doing their thing.
Yeah, guys
you don't
being
really
dudes.
expect the thing to be killing Nazis, but that's what it is in this movie, and you're like, all right, I'm on board with that.
That's right.
They earn your like very quickly because it's a motive we can all sort of get behind there.
That's exactly right. We don't need to know much more about these human beings. They're on the right side of history. They're killing Nazis. And
exactly.
That I think is aged particularly well. I think the view of fascist far right politics for young people basically is fuck Nazis. That's we've learned the lesson of history. There doesn't need to be a conversation about this. Fuck Nazis, and that's this very simple viewpoint that the Bastards have. It's like Nazi ain't got no humanity. We're gonna kill them, scalp them. We want to treat them like invaders that they are. So we've met the crew. We've learned everything we need to know about them in extremely quick detail, and they're able to divine where their next rendezvous point is in their journey towards killing Hitler.
Yep. And they get it because while the first guy is willing to die for his country,
that's right.
The guy behind him is shaking in his boots and is not willing to do the same.
Yeah,
but
Private Butts is a little bit smarter than the first guy. Yeah.
Also, just a brilliant moment in writing, just naming him Private
Butts. Yeah, we're having fun here, pal. We're having fun.
Establishing again these moments of joy. And so, anyways, then they're like interrogating this guy, and they say, "Well, where are they?" He quickly points, like very good moment of comedy there. Right here, they're right here. Go kill them. Go ahead, do your thing.
The shots of the tennis match moving between Private Butts and Wiki translating and Aldo Rain, just like ping ponging the camera back and forth between them as he's spilling every fucking secret he can think of. Yes, he's putting his sauerkraut sandwich licking finger down on the map and pointing out his comrades.
And then, they put their mark on him because I think one of the goals of the Inglourious Basterds is to make sure that any Nazi that walks free.
That's right.
Is marked as a Nazi forever.
They can never take off their uniform. Yeah.
Another interesting concept. How do you receive reparation for doing some terrible things in your past? And for them, one of the ways that they are going to get that is by wearing it on their sleeve forever.
That's right.
It's poetic.
Yeah, that's some storytelling ass writing there. So yeah, the Bastards know that a lot of their power comes from their mystique and from the folk tales that the German soldiers are left to tell about them. So you always leave someone alive, but they make sure that, imagine that fate as a maybe even a remorseful Nazi.
Exactly. Yeah.
To never escape it. And that's fairy tale writing too, because we know what happened to the Nazis. They fled to Argentina and they eventually birthed Anya Taylor-Joy. So thank you for that.
Parody.
They fled to Brazil. They were folded into the CIA. They were folded into Operation Paperclip. They went on to design our rocket systems for the Apollo missions. Like justice doesn't happen in the world the way it happens in this movie. Yeah. So to think of even one Nazi not being able to escape under the shadow no matter where he goes, very satisfying shit.
Somewhat rewarding for sure.
Yes.
I think the other moment that's established here is the Bastards wanting people to fear them. We are coming, hear us roar. And that is also just, setting up some fun for the future here.
That's exactly right. The Nazi will talk about us. The Nazi will fear us. So we've met the gang. The boys are back in town. We have all our friends together, our nice, lovely friends. And then it's time for a German night in Paris, my friend. We reconnect on the city streets in Paris with Shoshana Dreyfus, now a matured woman in her 20s, who is the proprietor of this lovely boutique theater in the heart of Paris. Cinema, that's right. And we see a little fun little Easter egg. She's taking down the letters for the White Terror of Pitz Palais, which ties into a cover story that one of our main characters will use later on in the story. But she's approached by, unbeknownst to her, German war hero and film star Frederick Zoller. What do you make of this, bud? Walk us through it.
Well, I have my thoughts, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
She threw it right back at me, folks. Okay, I was going to take a sip of water and everything. So
too bad.
Well, I love it. So we Shoshana is the main character of this movie.
Yes.
It's Shoshana's story. And Melanie Laurent, who is another one I had never heard of before, was not familiar with her at all, gives the best performance of the movie and the subtlest.
Definitely.
I think she's almost transported from another movie, and I think I wouldn't have liked it as much if she wasn't able to have her moments of joy and her moments of victory, and she ends up saving the day at the end, but she's just a revelation. She's the best, and she's this victim of the greatest trauma one can imagine can happen right next to them. She saw her family brutally murdered. Yeah. Didn't have time to grieve her family who were slaughtered because she had to escape. And now she's kind of thriving in her way. She reconnected with her aunt, who was, I could think, living safely as a Gentile in France, and inherited this theater. She has a really hot boyfriend, Marcel. And she's just running this theater, smoking her cigarettes in cafes, being hot as hell, wearing cool hats. But her world is disrupted when a pesky, horny Nazi won't leave her alone outside of her theater. So Frederick Zoller, who turns out to be the German Sergeant York, war hero because he was trapped in an eagle's nest for 3 days, killed something like 250 American soldiers, becomes infatuated with Shoshana. And throughout the movie, Frederick is living out this romantic comedy in his head where he thinks that she is smitten as well and doesn't know, because of his largesse and influence with the German military, and he can get whatever he wants without much pushback at all, that he is falling gradually in love with this, what he thinks is a French Gentile in Paris.
I think this moment it's beautiful in a way because it's a meet cute, he finds her
exactly
on a ladder a beautiful woman outside of a theater. Like it is a genuine Hollywood made moment in that sense. Because who wouldn't be swept off their feet by that, right? So what's ultimately incredibly rewarding is she has obviously found a way to forge papers and live the way that she's been living right under their nose the entire time. Which is also, I think an interesting story in and of itself, because that happened to probably many Jews, that they were hiding right there in plain sight in hopes to never be discovered.
All the while living with the guilt that their people are being rounded up, that the survivor's guilt must be overwhelming. So Shoshana has been kind of forged in the crucible of all of that. Yes. That's what makes her. But yeah, Frederick follows her to a cafe the next day or so on, tells her his entire story. She realizes how famous he is because all recognizing him. All the silly little Nazis keep coming over and Heil Hitler and him and like fawning over him. And then eventually she is summoned from her theater to a very special lunch with the propaganda minister of the Nazi army, Joseph Goebbels. Joseph Goebbels has become aware through his friendship with Frederick Zoller and championing of their film Stolz to Nation, that there's this charming little cinema in the heart of Paris where they can possibly hold the premiere, the French premiere at least, of their new film. What do you think, man? Okay, we'll get to the best scene in the movie soon enough. Okay. Second best scene in the movie? Second best? Maybe?
Yeah, I would give it that. I think there's so many different layers to it, right? There's obviously the politics of the inner German ranking system there. Yeah. So, like, that's kind of interesting and fascinating to play out. And then you see sort of this, like, quote unquote love story unfolding. And all the while, and I think to your point and the credit I will give her as well, is Shoshana in this moment is just deadpan the entire time. Because there's nothing that she can do. She has no power in this moment at all, besides the fact that if this works, she can enact a plan. But maybe she doesn't know this in this moment, or maybe she hasn't started plotting that yet. But it's interesting because a lot happens to her in this scene. And there's very little reaction on her face, but the performance is pretty amazing.
It's incredible because, she has 20 secrets that would absolutely lead to her demise if any one of those slipped out. So she cannot understand a single word any of them are saying. She's meeting someone she knows. She knows who Joseph Goebbels is. So she's a film buff. She knows exactly who that is. She's drawing conclusions about Goebbels' translator and their relationship and dynamic. Should be said the translator.
Don't we also learn at this point that the Germans in this time, not to collectively label them here, were so narcissistic to make movies about their war and cast the actual people who did those deeds? Like,
well, Jesse, this is kind of a double joke, because when I mentioned that he was the German Sergeant York earlier, I'm talking about Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy, the film star from America, was a war hero in World War II and the star of many propaganda films for the American war effort after his travails in Europe. So yeah, he's kind of like he's double lacing this joke, and he's reflecting it back on Germany.
To be fair, no country is safe from those jokes.
No, of course not. No.
We're all narcissistic enough to cast our own war heroes.
We are loyal against the Nazis. that is our allegiance in this movie.
That's it.
But yeah, there's a lot of meta like film history jokes happening behind the scenes.
That's
there,
great. I love that.
But basically, Frederick Zoller is in the process of trying to convince Goebbels to host the premiere at this theater when your heart leaves your body, because in walks Hans Landa. And we get the super metal drums and the soundtrack changes, and it's this I remember feeling that for the first time in the theater, and it got me again when I watched it last night, by the way. Just like your soul leaves your body.
Yes.
The Reaper has come to collect his due, or so we must think at this time. But Hans insists on kind of questioning Shoshana as the security chief of the Nazis to make sure it's going to be a safe and worthy venue for this great Germanic event. But they sit down for a strudel, and this is the most terrifying scene in almost any movie. Shoshana is there, finally allowed to speak French with someone, but it's the man who killed her family. She does not want this premiere to happen at her theater. She doesn't want to be in this conversation. She doesn't know whether or not he recognizes her.
Exactly.
Okay, let's stop there. Do you think he does?
So that was going to be my question for you.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that he does not. Otherwise... Yeah. Okay, so I'm so torn.
Go ahead.
I'm so torn because
So am I.
I feel like he doesn't. Otherwise, why wouldn't he have done something about it then? Why would he have let this whole plot play out? And then on the flip side, he does that very villain thing where he's like, oh, I had one more thing I was going to ask you. But I have now forgotten what it was. Which is like, as an audience, you're like... And so in that moment you question. So I genuinely don't think so. I think it's used as a device there, or maybe he's even using it as a device in some way. The character itself, but
of course, I don't think it matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm pretty convinced that he does, and I think to your point, why if he knows, why wouldn't he have stopped the whole charade? I think because he doesn't give a shit. I think we find at the end of the movie, like he's
Good point.
He's not a Nazi in spirit. He's a sociopath. Like he's a monster. He's out for number one.
Serial killer at this
That's
point.
right. Exactly. He found an opportunity to kill people sanctioned by the government. I
mean, interesting theory there. Like I would buy that as well. I think if we're looking at Hans Landa as just a villain and not holding him to anything or any group of people, he is just evil. So in that case, why not play with this woman here who he knows is hiding?
He's having fun. He orders her a glass of milk, Jesse.
Yeah.
He specifically pauses to order her a glass of milk.
I'm sold at this point.
So he knows.
Because I think in that moment too, I was like, oh, the milk, like there must be something there. And so I'm sold. I'm
sold that he's been keeping tabs on her ever since she left the farmhouse. He's known every step she's taken along the way, and he's been kind of toying with her. And the reason I think the reason I believe that from probably the first time I viewed it was he has the analogy of the rat and the squirrel when he's talking to La Petite. He shares the analogy that like the world is a hostile place for a rat. Squirrels are identical. They're a little bit cuter because of the tail, but they're basically the same animal. He doesn't have anything against the Jews. He's not prejudiced in the way that the Nazi army is. He doesn't feel like the Jews or that the Western world will take down the glory of Deutschland. He doesn't have those views. He's not a sincere Nazi. He's a sincere monster. And he sees the chaos of the war as a ladder. He's climbing that ladder.
I love a fucking villain, dude.
Me too, but they're the best.
How do you not love to dig into the psychology of a sociopath? I mean, I don't know what that says about me, but it's fascinating.
It says you're not alone there, buddy. There is currently a second Silence of the Lambs TV show on the air that's quite successful. I think people love this shit. There's an innate part of the human psyche that really responds to this.
But what I think I love about this particular villain and a movie like this, because I'm not a big murder mystery person. It's not my scene because I'm genuinely terrified of being murdered.
You're a coward. Yeah.
Because I'm scared of everything. But there's something this is why I love Othello so much, because Iago is the best character in the whole damn thing. And you just dig into this person, and I think even now just talking about him, and obviously we've talked about him the most. He's obviously the leading role in this movie. It's so well done because there's so many different layers. There's this layer that we're talking about, the sociopath layer. There's this Nazi layer, he's part of the worst group of humans that have ever walked the earth, you know. Course. And then there's just he's a bad person. But there's something about him. There's something about the way Christoph Waltz plays him. There's something about it that you fucking like because it's so fascinating to watch.
Well, it's competency porn as well. So I think people really love watching people who are good at their jobs.
Yeah.
It could be any job at all, but there's something very compelling about, like, if this person was really good at building canoes, but also he was a murderer, that's the same character. So, like, you know, I love that the film is constantly able to one up how omnipresent he is and how omniscient Hans Landa is. He speaks every fucking language. He knows everything that's going on. He's 20 steps ahead of everybody. That's always thrilling. And if you're going to make a villain, you might as well. But I think, Tarantino is not interested in debating the merits of German National Socialism and the viewpoint of the Nazis. He's interested in the kind of person who would profit from this war.
And is this type of crazy person could. Yes, it's so good.
That's right. So I think he knows. I think Hans Landa is playing this elaborate game, and I think he pulled her deliberately aside. He may have known they were meeting with this young girl cinema owner. He may have heard that and come to the restaurant on purpose and surprise them so that he could have the conversation with her. But anyway, like, during the scene, we get the attendez la crème, which I think about all the time. I think about, wait for the cream a little bit. We get Tarantino's, something he does every movie, which is his loving, beautifully photographed food shots. We have the cheeseburger in Pulp Fiction. We have the beer in Django Unchained, etc. And in this one, we have this beautiful strudel and whipped cream that Landa devours, picks the raisin out of, and chews on. And we get the moment of Shoshana tasting the pastry, which is my favorite moment.
Why? Why do you love that moment?
Because how she's playing it. So she is forced. She's begrudgingly taking the bite of the pastry at first, and he makes her wait for it. She's like, I don't want to fucking be here. I'm going to die. I hate this shit so much. And then she finally takes the bite, and you see her eyes just go, ooh. It's pretty good. Pretty good strudel. And then she's right back into the terror. It's really lovely. It's so dumb, and I think about that moment a lot. Anyway, pretty good strudel. So what's next? Let me reference the note real quick.
I'm just gonna pause for a moment and just say, like, I think in this one conversation, in this one scene, I've convinced myself that this is such a great movie. I can't get over it. Like, I'm thinking about, like, we both talked about how our dad's, like, we're not even halfway through. Like, we still have huge moments left. I'm thinking about my dad watching these movies and thinking, oh, God, like, Hitler's such a bad guy. Like, you know, mean. Like, all of this stuff. And, like, this movie is so, like, if I'm going to watch a movie about World War II, I'm going to watch this movie. Because, like, we all studied the books. We all know what happened. We don't really need to relive. No. I mean, we should honor it. We don't really need to relive it. In the sense that, like, and putting ourselves through that trauma. Like, I feel the same way about, like, movies that come out around 9/11, you know, like, oh, gosh, like, we still all have a collective trauma around that. We don't need to relive the trauma over and over again to feel something for it. I mean, and that's obviously my opinion, but I definitely feel that. And whenever I'm, like, sitting around the TV around September 11th, and they're like, oh, this new documentary and this new angle and this new thing, like, you can really go down a rabbit hole here. But I think what's so great about this movie is, like, as we talked about at the beginning, like, this reclaiming of a fascinating moment in our history that is terrible and atrocious and a study of human nature. About our wielding our power over one another and just taking a whole different take on. Oh, it's just so good. I'm just gonna cry.
You're completely right, and I think, like, that this movie takes into assumption and takes for granted that we all know the war was bad and that the Nazis were bad.
Yes.
It's like, okay, that's our starting premise. Everyone naturally understands this, of course. So, and we're this many years out of it, this many decades and generations out of the war, that now it came time to, like, have fun with it. That's a fucked thing to say.
No, but there's something there, I think.
Right. And then
which is probably and is confirmed part of the movie's critique
Yeah,
is that did you take it too far? And then, it's a valid question.
It's a perfectly fair critique, and it should be said this movie was pretty controversial.
Yeah.
I completely understand and empathize with the objections to the movie. It is a non-Jewish person telling the story of Jewish triumph against the Nazis. It is not his place to make the movie. It's not his place to make fucking Django, certainly.
Exactly. Great call.
That's not the point. Tarantino is a presumptuous filmmaker, and he's audacious in that, and irreverent.
And he knows it, and he doesn't care
of course. No.
that anybody has an opinion about that.
No, and I think I'm sure he'd be the first to say, I know this is disrespectful. I understand that. It is not my place to do it. I am the most privileged person to have ever walked the earth. I've been famous since I was 24 years old and very rich the entire time.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, if anybody besides him had the gumption or the privilege, like the internalized privilege to have taken on this project, they would not have made it successful because they're not as good as he is at filmmaking.
Yes.
Their concerns are not the same. It wouldn't have been shot as beautifully. It wouldn't have been acted as beautifully. It wouldn't have been written as densely and beautifully and comically as it was here. So he's maybe the person that can get away with it.
It's almost like a good comedian. If you tell the joke funnily enough, regardless of whether it's your joke to tell, people might laugh at it,
That's it. And there's something like satisfying about just that premise right there. Like he got away with it. He fucking did it. Yeah.
I'm looking at the cast before we move on to the next scene here, and I just connected some dots in my head here. So I'm looking at Diane Kruger's face, and she is in what is it, National Treasure?
National Treasure.
Yeah. And so I just connected that in my head.
Jesse movie.
Yeah, I love that movie. I do. I freaking love it. So stupid, but I love it. Anyways, but her face, I've been trying to figure out who Diane Kruger reminds me of this whole time.
Yeah.
And it's not her in another movie, but she reminds me of someone. And the person that she reminds me of is the chick from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yes.
And I'm just connecting
Allison Doody.
Yes. And
Allison Doody, another Nazi.
Yes.
I don't think that's an accident. I think the fact that she was cast as this perfect Aryan dreamscape person,
exactly,
like the Hitler dream actress. It's like if you're gonna have a German spy actress who's extraordinarily famous, she's got to be in the good graces of the Führer enough to get away with this. So that's on purpose, 100%. Yeah.
Anyways, on to the next. We have spent too much time there, but that was increlling to talk about.
So, one last thing before we move on to Operation Kino, the best part of the movie and my favorite subsection. Shoshana apparently decides on the way home from her fateful dessert with Londa that she is going to use her film canisters. And we learned from Sam Jackson's second narration that nitrate film is very flammable, that she's going to lock the Nazis in her theater and burn the shit down.
That moment is fantastic when they're explaining how flammable that film is.
The best. You can't get on the trolley car with that flame, man. It's going to burn up.
Yes.
But she confides in her lover, Marcel, that they are going to burn down the theater. She's come up with her conspiracy, and we're left at that, and we transition to Operation Kino.
Just to give Marcel just a quick moment here, what a powerful character. Obviously he's representing a human that is obviously very, very discriminated against, and next to another human who is a woman and a Jew. And I think the representation there is really fascinating and an interesting plot point that we don't need to dive too deep into necessarily, but I just think it's a powerful illustration, I guess.
Yeah. And you could props to Jackie Ito. He gives a lot of pathos with 3 lines of dialogue in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
And you can kind of envision in your head, even though it's not stated, how they would have found one another. And what the foundation of what their love for each other means to them.
How they came together. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Operation Kino.
That's right, baby. So we began Operation Kino in this gigantic drawing room, this huge study, and through the doors walks the biggest fucking movie star you've ever seen in your goddamn life. We have Michael Fassbender. The first time I ever saw this human being walking through these enormous doors, and Lieutenant Archie Hickox reporting for duty. Let's go!
We're like, who are you? But I don't know who you are, but I want to be a part of whatever you're a part of.
Yeah, that was my reaction. Like, who's this fucking guy? Where did he come from? But yeah, we meet Lieutenant Archie Hickox, who is the perfect man for the job. He is, basically British Army Special Services. He is recruited as a bilingual German-English speaker and film critic to go on this undercover mission to meet Bridget von Hammersmark at La Louisiane Tavern in Paris to plan their infiltration of Nation's Pride film premiere at Shoshana's Theater. But we have this weird-ass little scene in introduction with Mike Myers as British command.
General Ed Fenwick.
That's right. Ed Fenwick. Thank you very much. It's going to drive me crazy. Under 20 layers of prosthetics that are so fucking stupid and probably took 8 hours.
You don't even ever see it up close.
No, you don't. He's 20 feet away. This is the biggest room that's ever been built. And he asked Archie to go over to the bars in the Globe to make himself a scotch and water. He takes it neat, no junk in it. And then who's sitting at the piano, bud? Who's out there in the corner?
Sir Winston Churchill.
That's right. So Archie states his bona fides. He was a film critic. Basically... This is the biggest swinging dick performance in the history of film. Just this is a movie star. This is Steve McQueen. This is the best. He's James Bond. He's James Bond of the scene. But he's briefed on what their mission is. It's to meet famous German film actress Bridget von Hammersmark at this small pub in Paris, alongside some members of the American Fighting Force Inglourious Basterds, the German-speaking members of this team, of course. So after the beautiful introduction, Operation Kino, we reconnect with the Bastards very briefly.
There's something famous about the guy who plays Winston Churchill.
He was retired. He's an Australian actor. Do you have the cast list pulled up? Because I have it, but
Winston
I avoided
is the only
it because I
one
couldn't remember.
Not on it. Hold on. Let me look.
Oh, Rod Taylor. He had been retired for some time. He passed away in 2015. So it's one of his last performances. It's his last performance.
It's his last.
But yeah. He was just out in the Outback drinking beer, and he pulled him off the couch out of retirement. Yeah.
And honestly, you don't need to. I mean, obviously, there's been many great performances of Winston Churchill, but you don't really need to do a lot. You just got to kind of put on that suit and put a cigar in your mouth, and
that's right.
Have a steak every night for dinner, and you've done it. But it's a very recognizable character. You know exactly who that is. Just a quick side note and recognition for what's his face that played Winston Churchill in The Crown.
John Lithgow.
John Lithgow, and I have to shout him out. I don't know why I'm taking us on this tangent, but I'm already started, so I'm gonna go there. Just a great moment where an American got to reclaim a British role, because I feel like that's always happening in the other direction. So
yeah. The one time a Brit was not cast for every part in a movie. Yeah, that's right.
That said, British actors usually do it better, so I can completely understand why that happens generally.
But it's also a symptom the modern controversy is that if you see a black actor in a modern movie, they're probably from England, because there's the ingrained classism of the theater class being more prepared than an American kid to play an American black person. Anyway, so that
we
was
digress.
A digression, wasn't it? That was fun.
Sorry,
okay.
I took us there.
So we find ourselves in the hideout of the Bastards, and Hickox has just relayed the plan to them. Aldo Rain is not pleased to have his men go into a basement because of the natural dangers of fighting in a basement. But all the while, Hugo Stieglitz is in the back, sharpening his Hitler Youth knife, which is very poetic, on the belt. But then we're in La Louisiane, and this is it. This is what it's all building towards for me. This is my favorite scene in the movie. This is the best short film I've ever seen. It's the fucking best.
It's so good. So, it has all the makings of what's the tune that plays when the tumbleweed rolls by in the Westerns? But
I don't know. Are you talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly? The do you use?
Yeah.
All this. You know who composed that tune is Ennio Morricone, who does most of the music for this movie.
And by the way, I we have to give him a nod for a moment because like the opening music to this movie is excellent. The music throughout is poetic. It's really well executed. Like the song that's playing while the massacre is happening or just before, I can't remember, is just brilliant. So yeah, a nod to him and all of the great music that he composed for this film.
Yeah, we'll come back to his composition. I think the one you're referring to is Shoshana's fateful meeting with Frederick Zoller near the end. Like a particularly beautiful piece of music. But yeah, we're in the La Louisiane Tavern. It becomes apparent almost immediately because the first voices we hear are in German that this is the wrong fucking night to have this meeting in this bar. Unfortunately and fatefully cannot be avoided. They've arranged to have their super secret spy meeting in the bar in the same night that a group of German soldiers has been given the night off to celebrate the birth of Wilhelm's son Maximilian. So we're essentially in the midst of a bachelor party happening. They're playing heads up. They're having a blast. They're sitting with this gorgeous movie star who happened to be in the bar, and unbeknownst to us, Dieter Hellstrom, major of the SS, is on his own in the very back. What do you make of this scene, buddy? What sticks out to you?
Yeah, what terrible combination of people that happen to be here this evening, but it makes for an incredibly rewarding scene. I loved, this is actually I haven't seen this movie in a long time. I didn't remember the scene. Like, isn't that weird? Like, I didn't remember it. I can't remember the context in which I first watched this movie. I can't remember if I saw it in the theater or not. I can't remember. Sure. So it's obviously just been a while since I've seen it in general, but
it really kind of makes sense because it's such a standalone thing. It stands on its own feet so independently of everything else that it does feel like the part that's maybe the most removed from Inglourious Basterds, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when I was watching the scene, I was like, wow, I don't remember anything that happens here, or how significant it is. So I was watching. Unfortunately, I watched this movie in two parts because I was watching it this morning and I had to go to breakfast, and I paused it right as the what's his face, the person who was there by himself who fucks everything
Dieter
up.
Hellstrom.
Yeah,
Hellstrom.
Right as he starts to get involved, and I was like, oh. No. So I had to pause it there and return to it there. They obviously intentional to have a really fucked up night in the basement here at the bar, and it makes for a great combination of suspense and sort of joy and terrifiedness throughout. So like, you're in this moment of celebration because this guy's had a baby and he meets this movie star and she signs this napkin for him. You're like, oh, how sweet. And then you know that these two are on a mission. And now the Bridget von Hammerstein, or Stein, or
Hammersmark. Yeah.
Hammersmark, that one. Some German name. She is a spy, like confirmed spy at this point. Yeah. We know that she is a part of this conversation on purpose. So I guess I would love your take on breaking it down.
Sure.
Yeah. Take us through.
Sure. This is not like, okay, so there's a moment when they're touring the theater earlier in the movie might actually happen later, where Goebbels explodes at the mention of the name Lillian Harvey.
Yes.
Lillian Harvey was a real-life Bridget von Hammersmark. She was a German film star who basically enabled Jewish refugees to escape Nazi Germany. She was a turncoat to the Nazis, essentially. So when he blows up about it, this was a real phenomenon that happens. In every major war, there are, of course, spies that are double agents, and some of them were quite high profile. Given that this was a world war, the scope and the caliber of, famous person that was involved in it, such as your Audie Murphys of the world. Elvis Presley would later go on to serve in Vietnam, etc. So this was an example of something like that. But Bridget von Hammersmark, played here by Diane Kruger, an actor I also was not familiar with, it just absolutely kills it. It's just giving this 1,000,000-watt movie star performance. She likes smoking, she likes drinking, and she likes ordering in restaurants. I'm like, same girl.
Yep.
But she has joined this group of German soldiers on leave in their game of heads up. But eventually she makes her way over to the Basterds and Archie Hickox for their formative meeting, and it's Wilhelm who kind of screws everything up, the drunk dad, because he comes over and ingratiates himself, asks for an autograph with Bridget von Hammersmark, and kind of like in his stupor refuses to leave. There's that great shot where he leaves and comes back and he says,
Hammersmark, was führt Sie nach Frankreich?
And eventually it's Archie Hickox losing his cool in reprimanding him undercover as an agent, telling him to leave the officers' table.
Das ist ein Offizierstisch.
And letting his accent slip and letting slip some of his like Western Europe, like
Britishisms,
speak come through. Yeah, like almost like a Scottish hybrid German accent that he's doing there that eventually gets the attention of Dieter von Hellstrom, who's in the back of the room, enjoying his lovely boot of beer and listening to his record player. And then it's cursed from then on out. It's doomed. The mission's fucking over. But we have this great scene of them playing heads up. And it's in this scene that Tarantino shares his theory on the movie King Kong. He had shared it previous to this movie on Fresh Air with Terry Gross on NPR years ago. But he's had this long-standing theory. He loves theorizing on movies. That King Kong is a veiled story of African slaves being moved to America and the story of their plight in America. Man, I don't know. Like everything about the scene is so fucking perfect. The dialogue is so perfect. Dieter Hellstrom is the best Nazi name that's ever been made.
All of the Nazi names in this movie.
They're so good. So good. But yeah, like this is a one-off little spy movie where the bomb's under the table the entire time. We know exactly what the stakes are here. They're in a basement. They're cursed. They're doomed. It's just rotten luck. And eventually Archie Hickox, after having covered for his accent really remarkably. Like the Pitts Paloo story, like if you watch this movie, you'll see my brother. He was so handsome. He's skiing down the mountain. We're from a very particular region of Germany that's a mountain town. It's kind of cloistered, so we have this weird voice. And von Hammersmark is selling it. And then Till Schweiger and the guy who plays Vicky, they're doing great work here. But eventually the game is given away when Hickox asks for 3 glasses. He lets slip that he is not German. And we're not told what the mistake was. We just feel the shift. And suddenly Hellstrom says he's sick of the games and lets it be known that he has a gun pointed at his testicles.
That's amazing. Yes, I like that's the part that's really interesting. Obviously, they have the accent moment, and then it is fascinating that they don't tell us what the mistake was. I'm sure if you are familiar, you might know. So if you know, like, let us know on Instagram or something.
Yeah, leave it in the comments. No. It's eventually revealed that he put he gestured for 3 with his hand, the American fashion and not the German fashion, and that's what gave the game away. But the turn from we're keeping up this charade, no, we're German soldiers, you're none the wiser, to, well, if this is it, old boy, I hope you don't mind if I go out speaking the kings. That's like that's the best. That's why movies were created. This is the best movie ever made.
Well, if this is it, old boy, I hope you don't mind if I go out speaking to kings.
Yes, I agree.
But eventually they have to say Auf Wiedersehen to their Nazi balls. There's this
all of them say Auf Wiedersehen. And another great moment here, because you're kind of like, well, what the fuck is going to happen then? How is this going to play out? Are they going to die? Yep. Are the good guys going to die here? And another nod to this movie, like, the good guys are not safe. This is not a happy bow movie. You got to sacrifice for figuring this out, and that the scene is that.
Yeah, if you want to make a Tomlet, you got to break some Greggs. So yeah, it goes from like this extraordinarily slow build of a scene that's both funny and extraordinarily tense to like the most like schizophrenic murder tableau that's ever been made. Everyone's getting shot. Eric the bar owner's dead. His daughter is dead. All the German soldiers are dead with the exception of Wilhelm, who is left in kind of a Mexican standoff between him, we don't know it, but Bridget as well, and the Basterds. Wilhelm makes a final plea saying, my son was just born. This is a joyous night for me. I didn't come here to kill anybody. It's not my fault they started shooting this place up. Please spare me. I just want to go home to my son. And Von Hammersmark
so much
says, no,
irony in that moment alone.
Exactly.
But yes, yeah.
It's fucked, but I feel for him. His son, Maximilian, is there with his mom. Like, he just wants to go home and see him. And Von Hammersmark says, no, fuck you, Nazi, and kills him. It's great. So then we're in the veterinarian's office. No, it's all silly times now. The rest of the movie is the silliest shit. We're just in our Looney Tunes hour. As soon as he starts poking his finger in her bullet hole in her leg.
Which, like, credit to a woman or anyone who can have that much tolerance for pain. Because, like, you would have passed out already.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, so she's suffering quite a lot, but she's able to convince Aldo that what happened in the bar was not a devious plot on her part. It was a tragic cosmic accident.
Exactly, which it was.
Exactly. And because she is spared, she's able to come up with this plan. She's able to pivot her plan, because originally it was to have the German-speaking bastards pretend to be like German filmmakers with whom she is friends and escort her to the movie premiere. She's now left with the scrubs on the Bastards team. She's now left with the purely American Brooklyn accented shit bastards who have
those that cannot speak German.
That's right.
And maybe some Italian.
Yeah, they got a little Italian in there. It's pretty good.
I love it when what's his face Donahue says, "Well, we might know some Italian. I don't know." Like,
well, I speak the most Italian, so I'll be your escort. Donovan speaks second most, so he'll be your Italian cameraman. Omar third most, so he'll be Donnie's assistant.
I don't speak Italian.
Like I said, third best. Just keep your fucking mouth shut. In fact, why don't you start practicing right now?
So they pivot. They deal with ambiguity. They show agility on the fly. These are real good leadership skills. But they come up with a new plan, which is rather than posing as German filmmakers, let's make them Italian. Von Hammersmark attests that Germans don't have a good ear for Italian. There's not a lot of cross-population there. We might be able to get away with it. You walk through the door with confidence, act like you belong there. We might get away with it. And then it's time for Chapter 5, the final chapter of our movie. Revenge of the Giant Face. So, you want to take us through this one?
Nope. You'll do it better.
Cool. So I'll do it longer, certainly. I swear this episode has an end. But we start with Shoshana in the window. We get to see our favorite girl again. Our beautiful friend Shoshana is framed by this gorgeous Doctor Strange window to the strains of David Bowie's Cat People, the only like pop song needle drop in the movie. And we follow her like Tarantino's just flexing at this point. He's just fucking around.
Oh my God, this scene is so beautiful.
We have this Wes Anderson overhead shot of the little diorama that is the cinema. We're following her put her lipstick on and her war paint on and looking all beautiful in her red dress and her little veil that comes with Jesse's doing the veil right now. Beautiful. She pulls a little funeral veil over her eyes because she is about to witness an execution.
Hot damn, I love a woman getting ready for revenge.
See, that's why like this movie's perfect, because you take the time to show like a pretty lady putting her makeup on. It's the best. So we follow her downstairs and we're introduced to this massive crowd of the most powerful Nazis in the war. we have propaganda minister, war minister. We have the head generals. We got everybody. We got the Fuhrer, and they're all mingling and talking and having a grand old time, tripping the light fantastique at the cinema. So it's at this point that Shoshana is coaching Marcel through the real breaks. Of course, this is Tarantino, so it all revolves around the magic of movie making, because he's a fucking nerd. But she's talking like, okay, at this reel we do this. At this reel it pops off. At this reel I'm probably dead. I love you forever. But then we segue in to a conversation between the Bastards, now beautifully dressed in their white tuxedos, and Bridget von Hammersmark, who are confronted by whom?
What's his face? Christoph Waltz.
That's right. Christopher Waltz.
The one with the German sounding name.
That's right. Hans Landa.
So, by the way, Hans Landa, we forgot to mention, also found the napkin of what's her face.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay, I didn't even use my own notes. So yeah, Hans Landa has been back to La Louisiane. He's found the autographed napkin with the lipstick kiss, and now he knows that von Hammersmark is connected to this plot. Yeah. Correct.
So at this point, he's trying to get her alone. He's having this somewhat hilarious conversation where she's wearing her casted high-heeled shoe, and she is introducing her Italian filmmaker friends. And you hear them all do their little accent, and you're like, come on, Brad Pitt, please say something. Please say something. And you're like, come on, do it. Because you know it's going to be terrible. And we'll jump forward just a moment just to say you get it, and it's really good. What does he say?
He says buongiorno.
Nobody says something at the end. Or something like
Arrivederci.
that. Arrivederci.
So the sequence of events was like we're still on tenterhooks because we don't know if this plan is going to work.
Yeah. But the suspense now is it's growing.
It's boiling over. It's about to boil over. So like we're confronted by Hans Landa, and every time it's just he's death incarnate. Like he's just the most terrifying presence. He's the Grim Reaper come to collect. And then we don't know how well the plan is going to work. And the first thing we hear after this really beautiful introduction by Von Hammersmark with their roles and everything, Brad Pitt says buongiorno, and that's the hardest I've ever heard a theater laugh before in my life.
Buongiorno.
Because they're like, oh, they're fucked. This is hilarious. Like, it's so much worse you can imagine. And fun fact from behind the scenes, Tarantino thought he was going to pull that off a little bit better. He didn't write it as like a heavily accented buongiorno. He thought, well, maybe we'll let him actually speak pretty good Italian and maybe get away with it for a second. But it's just such this relief. We're introduced to Antonio Margheriti, Dominic DeCoco, and Antonio Gorlami, I think is Brad Pitt's name. They let them do the hands, Jesse. I wish I'd turned my camera on for this reason. They let them do the chef's kiss hands. Dominic DeCoco. And we're given our final Hans surprise, which is, of course, he speaks elaborate, beautiful Italian. Of course.
Language is power.
Of course he does. That's it. So he's the most connected person on earth. And after their introductions, Hans summons Von Hammersmark into his private study for a private conversation. Not good.
Not great.
Good.
Not great. Doesn't end well here. I think you can all assume, like, going into that room, you know exactly what's going to happen. It's not going to end well. We have our Cinderella moment. Where he confirms.
Well, one could call it Cinderella. One could also call it that Tarantino's insistent on his foot fetish being in every one of his movies. But we get a whole
Is that real?
scene
Does he actually have a foot fetish?
Oh, Jesse, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a well-known director trademark. There are loving shots of women's feet in every one of his movies.
What a weirdo. All right.
Yep.
I will call it the Cinderella moment because that's also what it is. When the shoe fits.
That's right.
And so, she meets her demise here and quickly realizes it and says, all right, well, now what? Just do it, basically. Yeah. And he does.
He strangles her. Yeah.
Sad. But she has played her role.
She sure has.
She has gotten and supported the lead up to this moment. So again,
she got the Basterds in the building. That's right.
Exactly. A casualty of the sacrifice that we all must make to kill all of these bad Nazis.
And immediately after, the baddest Nazi informs us why they were able to get into the theater in the first place. He knew all along. Of course he fucking did. So the next scene is Brad Pitt and BJ Novak are spirited away to a secret room. Brad Pitt screaming epithets about the Germans the entire time
which is
under
also
a bag.
Rewarding. Yeah.
The best. Just him screaming the dumbest, like basically being Yosemite Sam about Nazis under the hood. But we have our first parlay between Hans and Aldo, where Hans basically lays out, I will help you win the war. I will help you end World War II tonight. I will let you. I've already planted dynamite in the theater box that Hitler and Goebbels are in. I'm on board. I will stop it if you don't agree, but you can end the war tonight. But you have to connect me with your high leadership, like your commanding officer. I want to talk to him about securing my escape from the war and my assumed identity as an American on Nantucket Island. I want to be Sheriff Brody. All right. I want out of here. All right. I'm going to live on Martha's Vineyard for the rest of my life. And did you recognize who he was speaking with on the phone? Who was playing the CO?
No.
That's Harvey Keitel, buddy. Tarantino's old friend.
That's funny. I did not recognize that.
So We see Hans's plan finally come together. He's secured a safe exit for himself. All things considered, and all those got to agree, pretty good deal. Pretty good deal. Kill the entire German high leadership in the war, and the worst psychopath the earth has ever spit out gets to escape free. It is at this same time that Shoshana's plan is about to come together when she receives a knock on the door. Frederick Zoller, overcome by the images of his heroism on screen, is overcome. His PTSD circles back, whatever the case may be. He has to excuse himself from the theater box.
Which is like, talk about, oh, fuck. Like, you're thinking, is he going to try and walk out of the theater and realize it's locked? Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Like,
he can't get up.
Someone's walking.
He cannot get up. Yep.
Yeah.
Because we know at this point that he's already stepped over dynamite to leave the theater box.
Yes.
Like we saw Hans do the little kick it under the fridge gesture with the dynamite there. But yeah, he approaches or confronts Shoshana kind of in her projection box for their fateful showdown.
Ugh. I love this moment so much. It's so good. Yes, their fateful moment. And she knows why he's there. I think we can assume why he's there as well. He wants his big night, and he wants it to end with the girl. He
wants what's owed him.
Exactly.
Right.
And she's like, no. And he's like, you can't talk to me like that. I can have whatever I want. And then essentially what happens is she says, okay, come on in.
Yeah, lock the door. Yeah, come on.
And then he's in his German anger is like, what? You're saying yes? Which is great. A great moment.
There's time for some last minute Looney Tunes horniness as he scrambles to lock the door, and he turns around to find that she's holding a revolver, and he gets shot. What we think is dead. Shoshana gets her preliminary revenge against the people that took her family. She kills them dead. But in her kindness and her humanity, and in this being a fucking movie, she has to go see his face, I guess.
Yeah.
She turns him over. He's alive. He shoots her. She dies. It's this big, like, operatic slow motion thing as she's falling down, and her blood is mixing with the light of the projector and the dust
her
in
dress
the air and the filament and her beautiful dress and that Ennio Morricone music you mentioned earlier, which is really beautiful. But Shoshana dies too early to see her plan come to fruition.
Yeah. But does she see it?
Oh, yeah, she conducts it, my friend, because we've reached the point in the movie where Frederick Zoller screams from the eagle's nest, does anyone want to have a message to send to Germany? And Shoshana definitely does. Shoshana, the giant face in question, delivers. Do you want to take this part, Jesse? I got the impression, because we were texting while you were watching this exact part of the movie.
Yes, we were.
And I could sense your excitement. What happens next, buddy?
Well, I love that line. Who has a message for Germany? And she says, I have a message for Germany.
In English, no less.
Exactly.
She's only spoke French this entire time. She delivers it in English. Yeah.
And says, I am your enemy, and I am here to tear you down. And in so many words, but it's incredibly that she doesn't actually say what I said, but it's incredibly, I think she says something like, I am a Jewish girl from so-and-so, and I am here to enact my revenge upon all of the terrible things that you've done to my people and my community and my family and the world. So here you go. And then she sends her message to Marcel and says, Marcel, it's time. And you have this great moment where he's smoking his cigarette and he says, okay, Shoshana, and flicks it over, and up goes the film.
And there is one other plot thread that's happening simultaneous to this, just to get the pieces in the right place on the mousetrap board. So we are left with the Bear Jew and then Dominic the Coco are still hatching their plan. They've left their theater seats. They have the dynamite strapped to their calves, but they're in the men's restroom, and they know where the theater box is with Hitler inside of it. They have their little cartoon conversation of, when I kill that guy, you got 30 feet to get to that guy. Can you get it? So they quickly undress. They make the Bear Jew look like a waiter, and they bring over a glass of champagne.
Which, by the way, they have their cool handguns, their glove guns.
Yes, their handguns, the best. So they have their single shot little like punch guns that they use to take out the final guards during the climactic shootout scene. Shut hasn't happened yet. We're all over the place. But they take out the last 2 guards, position themselves just outside the theater box where Hitler stands, which means that during the Revenge of the Giant Face, we get one last shootout, don't we?
Yes, we do. You got those guns and you're in one of those 2 boxes. Let her rip. Hell yeah, let's go.
Let's go. So this is the final, like, big climax of the movie. Of course, the theater is on fire. It's burning down. They've locked the doors from the outside. Everyone in that theater is a Nazi. Everyone burns to death. The 2 remaining bastards who have not been captured by Landa, airhole Hitler and Goebbels, basically. We get several shots of them just unloading on them with automatic rifles. We see Hitler on the ground turned into Swiss cheese by this gun.
Of course, Tarantino, please give us this comedic moment of this iconic
absolutely.
face being torn apart by bullet holes.
And it should be said that this is the moment where I had mentioned earlier that I brought my dad to see this because I know his love of World War II cinema. I wanted to see if let's call it my generation's version of this storytelling would jibe with him. I think I lost him at this moment. I think this is when he was like, oh, come on, man. What am I watching here? Because if I bring this movie up to him now, he's like, the machine guns and Hitler. What are you talking? What are we doing here? So I'm sorry, Dad. Sorry, Hanson. I love you, bud. But yeah, so we see we see them shooting their rifles into the crowd. Everyone's burning alive.
Oh, by the way, we have to rewind for a moment because the filmmaker, what's his face, Hellstrom, or I don't remember, the guy who made. Is it Goebbels? No, it's not. It's not Goebbels. It's that other guy. I don't know who it was. Who Hitler's sitting next to? Or is it Goebbels? It might be.
Yeah, it's Goebbels. He's the director.
Okay. Hitler's sitting next to him, and Hitler says, "This is your best work yet." And it's like he's being told. He's
crying. Yeah.
It's like he's winning his Oscar. Like,
attaboy, son. You did it. You done good.
And then all of a sudden, the next moment later, Shoshana's face shows up on this thing, and he's like, "Oh shit." What's happening? Turn it up!
A little fun behind the scenes fact. Eli Roth, who plays the Bear Jew, directed Nation's Pride. He directed the actual film within the film in the Eagle's Nest. That's right. Yeah. So he ends up shooting the director who directed the movie he directed. But then as the plot goes on, everyone's burning to death. It's a complete chaos. This is this grand symphony of destruction and carnage, and the right people are getting what they deserve. And then eventually the film's screen burns away. But the smoke from the fire becomes the screen of the giant face. She's projected like the great Wizard of Oz, the great and powerful wizard, on the smoke in the theater.
Man behind the curtain.
cackling at the Nazis roasting alive. She did it. They were gonna die, and she was the Jew that did it. It's the best. So that was it. Operation Kino went off with a million hitches, but because Landa and Aldo Ray negotiated for his release, it was able to proceed as planned. And then we have one final scene. Is this the most triumphant final scene in any movie you've ever seen in your life?
Yes, because at this point, Landa thinks he's won. He thinks he did it.
Yeah.
He figured it out.
He has. Yeah, he pulled off the greatest ruse in history.
Yeah, he did. But not without a moment of, all right, well, take me to my new home, essentially. Mm-hmm.
They're going through the charade of, like, they're play acting that he's been captured by American forces and being turned over to the proper authorities, right?
Yep. Is it really necessary to put me in handcuffs? Yeah, bitch, it is. And down goes what's his face, that the German soldier,
his colleague.
With them. Yeah. And Aldo gets one more scalp of a Nazi here, which is just like, okay, whatever makes you feel good, I guess.
Yeah, there's the turn. That's the turn. Like, Aldo basically, he shoots the guy to Hans's left. Hans freaks out, of course, because he thinks he's going back on the deal. And Aldo explains very calmly, I'm not going back on the deal, man. It's a good deal. Yudovich, you make that deal, I make that deal. Yep. I don't blame you. Great deal.
We shook on it. Let's just keep going. But
Aldo has an exception. He has a caveat. He has a condition of the deal. Aldo cannot stomach another German soldier walking free after this war. So he gives him a uniform he can't take off, doesn't he, Jesse?
He sure does. And you get to see him carve it every last line of it.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite like special effects in any movie ever, because that is Christoph Waltz's head. Like you see him, you can the head is kind of obscured a little bit, but he is screaming bloody murder.
His eyes like from here
his
and above.
eyes are open, exactly. So we get a top-down shot of the swastika being carved in his forehead. The beautiful makeup effect of like flesh being punctured and blood spilling out on a head that is moving and screaming. The actor is there, so incredible work there. And then we get the final line in the movie. Do you recall what that was?
My masterpiece.
That's right. You eventually think this might be my masterpiece. Then fucking credits. Movie over. The best time anyone can possibly have at the theater. Perfect movie.
I just love Brad Pitt and BJ Novak just taking a look at their work of art.
Yeah. Well, that's how you get to Carnegie Hall. You got to practice.
Yeah.
You got to get the reps in, bud.
Oh man, it's so good.
So that's what I was most excited, because you were texting me through the last like 15-20 minutes of the movie.
Yes.
And just you kept losing the ability of speech the further along you went in the movie. just turning into this ape, this screaming animal.
Get it over with. Let's go.
Like we've seen, like, it could have ended at the theater. It could have ended at any moment along the course of this movie, but he gave it to us, man. He gave us, like, there's been a lot of tragedy. There's been a lot of death. We lost a lot of good folks along the way, but I'll be damned if Hans Landa is going to walk a free man without the stain of his complicity in this atrocity the rest of his life. It's the best. Like, and Tarantino ends it on the meta note. I think this might be my masterpiece, and it absolutely is.
Yes,
it absolutely is. Je dis bravo. It really is, I think, perfect. Where do we go from here, bud? Where do we go from here?
I mean, first of all, this movie is so good. I think, like, as we've been talking about it, and we've had our moments throughout, but like, it's gotta be up there for me. Like, it's just such a great film. Like, if I was to choose like a real film, like, I wouldn't say all of my movies were real films. All credit is due.
Absolutely.
But like, if we were to choose a truly like artistic piece of work, like, this is it. This is good. This is good stuff.
It's the one, right?
And yep. I think you tied it in really nicely, like our dad's generation versus our generation. This is our World War II.
That's
movie.
It. Yeah. This is our expression of that global trauma.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's really good. It's really powerful. Again, a kind of reclaiming of a moment. And it's worth a watch. If you're looking for a fun, Sunday afternoon, this could be it.
Also, like, good luck finding it on streaming. It was on Netflix. I felt bad about this, by the way, Jesse, because I didn't realize until last night, like, when I had to go find my DVD of this to watch this again. Like, it was on Netflix for like 5 years straight, and now it's fucking nowhere.
Yeah, I found it.
Where'd you find it? Oh, I see. Okay, Jesse found it. Jesse can be very creative when it comes down to it. She's very Jesse's very wily.
I don't know where I found it. I don't know. It's on YouTube. Go find it. I don't know. Google it.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
It can be found and watched. This is. I'm a little ashamed of myself for having beaten myself up over this so much and like agonized over choosing my fifth slot. This was absolutely in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. It is a joyful experience. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen, and it's just a place I want to spend the most time. This beautiful world.
It also might be my favorite conversation that we've had about any movie.
This is the best, man. I love it so much. And I'm also like, I'm glad we didn't burn this one like halfway through and have to like end on Chungking Express. That would have been a bummer, huh?
That would have been amazing. I mean, we would have had fun with that too, but goodness gracious.
Oh, sure.
Was this a way to go out with a literal bang?
Certainly. I felt myself against the wall in choosing this last one. I was like, there's got to be some fireworks here. So like, do I do I betray myself and make it a Mission Impossible movie when I know that's not sincerely in my heart of hearts one of my top 5, even though I love them uniformly?
If you had chosen that, I would have been very disappointed.
Would you have? Okay, got it. It's a little on the nose, huh?
Yeah.
But Jesse, this has been a great joy over these last few months doing this project with you.
It was a fun little project.
It was a fun little one. We don't know what's next on the schedule.
There'll be something. We don't know when,
exactly.
and we don't know what. So we'll all be surprised.
That's right. It'll be a shocking admission from one of us or the other. We will get ourselves canceled and uncanceled. We'll have hot takes galore. We'll be breaking down the best and the brightest of modern pop culture. We'll be talking about movies, film, not music.
Definitely not music.
Yeah, it's just I want to watch some stuff, man. I want to have some pretty images in front of my eyes.
And we have to we've been doing our top 5 series for a little while now, and since that has happened, many great things have happened on television and on screen. So I think there are many things for us to dive into here.
Yeah, we got some catching up to do.
Yeah.
But I think we can leave it at that. Any last words about Inglourious Basterds before we wrap up our favorite film series?
I don't know. Watch it. Do it. Watch it again like 5 years later. It will still be as rewarding. So just figure it out. And thanks for going on this journey with us, Showstoppers. We had a lot of fun.